So we kindly ask the speaker to speak closer to the microphone, please, because we cannot hear him very well. So where is the source? So we do not pay attention as Palestinians. So the level of solidarity is going to decrease in the future. Go ahead. We kindly ask the speakers to speak closer to the microphone, please. Kindly speak closer to the microphone, please. Be close to the microphone. Thank you very much for the valuable interventions. Good afternoon. I have an observation that I would like to share with you, and I would like to listen to your comments. Perhaps Majed would answer me. So you talked about language. So the linguistic starting point that would make us able to enter a number of solidarity squares. This would sometimes not enable us to enter other squares of solidarity where Israel is not there, such as South Africa and so on. So the discourse of solidarity is only covering 1/3 of the world in Western Europe and North America. But when it comes to the remaining parts of the world, we do not see that there is much coverage, much interest in those geographical areas that are necessary, in my view. So we have very strong possibilities in those geographical areas. So how can we make the best of those geographical areas? I would like to comment. I would like to say, so when you say that PDS Ramallah was the one that closed PDS South Africa, this is kind of a general statement. As a person who is very close to this movement, somebody who knows the reasons exactly what exactly would make Palestinians move in this direction. So there are so many things that I would not agree with them on. Yes, they have their own mistakes, but definitely they have relied on certain circumstances that have led such important thing not to be as strong as it should be. So they, as agents, they should play a very important role, and South Africa is one of the most important geographical areas. So the geographical area, so we were able to work. The youth were able to work, and they have been able to create new spaces, and those spaces need time for them to become stronger and better. So we should not excessively criticize ourselves. We have to look also at what had been achieved. So the other thing that I would like to talk about. So 5 years ago, I sent an email to a gentleman in Al Jazeera. I do not want to mention his name. I wanted to have AJ Plus in Germany because we are tired, really. We want to achieve something. We have Palestine بتحكي, Palestine talks. So these are Palestinians. 90% of the group are Palestinians. And we are not given any opportunity when it comes to German media. So we only concentrate on what comes from English-speaking countries. Because language becomes an impediment, I did not feel the same level of issues in Norway, although Norway does not speak English. But when we talk about Germany, we're talking about a very important country. So we have Switzerland, we have Austria, we have 1/5 of Dutch people, they speak German. So if you can, so we want to have this opportunity because every Palestinian would not have, and no Palestinian would be given the opportunity to speak in German media. So the most important Palestinian journalists in Germany, somebody mentioned the names of journalists that we could not hear because the lady is not speaking into the microphone. So the reply was, I want to mention some other names. So we cannot, the discussion is fragmented because the microphone is not used by the remaining speakers. So I've had enough. I've had enough, I have to say. I've had enough of all the progressive white spaces. I have been working with whites for a period of time, for 10 years before we built Palestine Btahki in Germany. So there are some persons who know Himmat and others. So when we used to organize something before Palestine Speaks or Palestine Btahki, I used to be the only Palestinian in addition to other Palestinians, and the remaining persons were whites. So it took us a long period of time, and now I am really, really proud of the efforts that were made there. So in East Europe, so these intersections are very, very important in East Europe. We need to work on them. We need to work on spaces in East Europe. Microphone, please. Please use the microphone. I guess he's talking about a program. He said you have a new program. So we have three persons here. One, two, three. Go ahead. First of all, I would like to say thank you. I have one question, and I would like to thank all the panelists for their interventions. My question, is there a scientific study or any tangible results that have been achieved when it comes to the activities, the impact on the occupied territories in Palestine? So, are these activities, have you seen any positive results, outcomes on the reality of Palestinian people in Palestine, in the occupied territories? Yes, very clear question. Go ahead. You have only 1 minute. In the name of God, the most compassionate, the most merciful, I only need 1 minute. You all raised your hands at the same time. Khalil, Dahshan, and Osama, I'm talking to you here. I'm going to comment on what had not been said. No, a question, please. Comment on what had not been said. Why are you not giving me freedom of expression? So Palestine is the center of conflicts. So Israel, we have the Grand Israel from Euphrates to Nile, the Nile, and this is being planned for from Egypt to other countries. This is the main issue. They are talking about Palestine. Yes, Palestinians are martyrs, are grand people, great people, but there is a much bigger project that Israel is working on, a project from the Nile to the Euphrates. So there is Camp David also, and we have to take into account the role of Iran. Iran is playing a very, very dangerous role. So this is very important. Yes, yes, Iran was able to kill many people in Syria and many other countries. 4 countries in the Arab world have been targeted by Iran. I would like to add an observation to what had been presented by Brother Osama and Ahmad Abuznaid. Talking about Palestinian action in the US. We kindly ask the speaker, please, to speak close to the microphone. We can only hear a few words out of the sentences he is. Please speak closer to the microphone. We cannot hear the gentleman. We cannot hear. The microphone is. We cannot hear what the speaker is saying. So there used to be elections and the representatives used to be sent.
بالعرب والفلسطينيون هذه نتائج.
So let's try to answer the three questions. So very quickly, I said in my intervention that the Zionist project has many facets. There is a cultural conflict, political and legal, and there is a conflict in the US, in Palestine, in Africa. So when I look at my role in the US is the biggest supporter of Israel. It gives a diplomatic and a political cover for Israel and gives military support to Israel. So my role is to weaken this project. Is this going to impact Palestine? So if the dynamic changes in the United States of America, we're going to see many, many changes in Palestine. So Brother Khalil, I think he met with a number of officials. So our strength lies in the fact that we are Americans, not in the fact that we are Palestinians. This is a very important point. So when we talk about the solidarity movement, so we are not talking about a Palestinian component of Palestine. We're talking about an American component that has all the Palestinian backgrounds represented. So when we talk about students, groups, but if all American universities, you're going to be surprised to see many, many activists in those universities are not only Palestinians, but there are Jews as well. These are things that we need to know. There are transformations that are happening within the community. Yes, the evangelicans are amongst the people who support Israel a lot. But we have to take into account that there are also supporters for Palestine. So for the evangelicals, this is a religious matter and not a political matter. But when we talk about the different generations, there is a gap between different generations when it comes to the level of support given to Palestine. So, working for Palestine, and this was expressed here. So, when we talk about the efforts that have been exerted, so this is a cumulative, sorry, effort. Uh, those before us have had a lot of lobbying carried out, C4, and also we have had Jewish forces. We have the Jews, Jewish voices who have preceded the Palestinians themselves in lobbying for the Palestinians. But I would like to differ with you here. So one of the reasons that have led to the death of the efforts exerted not in the solidarity movement but in the Palestinian component itself, because there are so many Palestinians in the United States of America. They want to express the same discourse that is being expressed inside the Palestine, the same factional kind of discourse. You cannot do that. So you are in a different kind of context. So when you establish a student union that includes a number of students, so competition is very important here. When you talk about patriotic Islamists and so on and so forth, I would like to say something. It seems that there is a misunderstanding among some people who live in the United States of America. We have what is called the identity politics. So you say, I'm an Arab, a Muslim. So Islam is not an ideological affiliation. It is an identity. So similar to African Americans, Latino Americans, the a matter of identity is a very important matter. There are battles that are being fought in the United States of America. So is the United States of America, is it an imperial country? It is inherently an imperial country. So let us not reduce this battle. So and talk about and use the same logic that you use in Doha or in Palestine or in Jordan. What is happening in the US is a completely and a totally different dynamic. So this says a lot. So what I want to say, let's go beyond this, because we are applying once again the model that we have in the Orient on the West. If we're going to continue with the same mentality, we're not going to step forward anymore. هناك
The
نقطتان.
U.S. campaign for Palestinian rights. So again, all respect and honor to those who came before us. And to the brother, that was a wonderful question, very important. I agree with wholeheartedly with Dr. Osama. What's happening right now is the Palestinians on the ground, they have a boot on their neck. And the United States is paying for that boot. They're creating that boot. They're allowing for that boot to be placed on our people's neck. So the most impactful thing that I can do, along with the people like me who vote in America, who pay taxes in America, is to take that boot off our people's neck. And then our people can fight for their freedom in the best way possible. Thank you.
Thank you.
I think, yeah, I mean, excuse my ignorance that maybe there is a report. I don't know of any. I think the focus has been elsewhere in my areas, namely the media. But if it wasn't having some sort of impact, why are they coming after us so violently and aggressively? I think that's a case in point, and a call for us all to continue applying that pressure.
Majed, any comment on the... Could
Yeah,
use this
yeah.
microphone.
اوكي هات بتوقع نفس الاشي اللي
So what has been said by Malia, the ministers of interior have met in Germany and they have issued a report. They included a number of groups, including Palestine بتحكي, and they have had a number of videos that have been mentioned also, videos that are sponsored. So at the end of the day, they are scared, they are worried, and there is resistance taking place from the oppressor against us. This is unprecedented, and the pace of these efforts is very, very quick, very speedy. And I always think about something that is very important when we talk together as youth living in Europe, particularly those who were born in Europe. We always think about how to liberate Palestine from Europe. So we cannot do much for Palestine if we're not strong enough inside our countries. So if you work for 8 hours, so there is a lot of life issues that you need to deal with. But at the end of the day, we cannot do all the things that we do if we do not concentrate on reoccupy the place that was occupied by the occupier. So, for instance, in Berlin, we have to take, so when I talk about occupation, we have to have agency where we would be able to resist, where we would be able to have a space for us where we would be able to resist and express ourselves. Microphone, please. Microphone. We cannot hear what the gentleman is saying. So we can continue the discussion during dinner. I'm inviting you for dinner. So I think there are 3 persons here that want to take the floor. Yes, yes. And there are 2 persons here on the left-hand side in the same area. Yes, go ahead. Dania Qablawi.
My question is to Malia. In the 2021 May war on Gaza, it was said that when the resistance started firing missiles into the occupied Palestinian areas, the Western support decreased when it was only a solidarity with the Sheikh Jarrah district in Jerusalem was higher when it was peaceful. In the 70s, most resistance groups were leftist, secularist. Now they are by and large Islamist groups. So to what extent can the Western countries realize that Hamas is different than ISIS and others? Thank you. توفيق حداد. شكرا.
Use of opinion polls because it's not a linear thing. The more people know about Palestine, the more support they have, or the more delegitimization of Israel, the more pro-Palestinian they become. This avoids the question of interest. So we have to be cautious about that. And not all the increased popularity that has come to Palestine has necessarily emerged out of the solidarity work, despite the great work that has been done around solidarity in the West. Part of it has to do with the crisis in Western liberalism and in the Western sphere, a crisis to do with crisis of US capitalism and imperialism from 9/11 to the disaster of the war in Iraq, which was more damaging than what happened in Vietnam. Of course, Afghanistan, of course, the 2008 economic crisis. This led to a form of chaos in the political and economic sphere across America, which also led to polarization of the political sphere, as well as a questioning around the role of Israel in it. And you see from Walt and Mearsheimer, who speak about the Israel lobby, they come from a realist political perspective that wants to correct the questions around Israel's role, because Zionism's vision for greater Israel is not the same as US imperialism's. All this to say that Palestinian liberation, what this implies for us is it creates a sphere for Palestinians to work in the context of the polarization and the breakdown of the traditional parties in the West, for us to work slowly and systematically. But to do that, we need to understand these societies. We understand the books outside need, of course I support books on the Arab world and our relation with Turkey and Iran, but they also need to be about post-war reconstruction in Germany, or building where Mayday came from in the United States, the nature of the United States. We need to study the West, Western liberalism, its society, its class structure, its ethno-racial structures. Then we need to study how Zionism the architecture of Zionist institutions across America and across the Western world, because it looks different in different places. And unless we understand these societies, we can't actually insert ourselves into it.
Okay.
Finally, to wrap up,
got
we
you,
are in a
man.
historical moment right now. It is not clear that we will lead to liberation right now. It is in the balance. There's great opportunities that exist because of the Israeli government right now, but at the same time, it could go populist and we could be screwed. Palestinian society, liberation,
Thank you.
is
Screwed
linked
is
to a
fine, period.
fundamental
Thank
change
you.
in the West. And we need to be a part of that change.
Thank you. Okay, let's go ahead. I thought the first question that we heard from the crowd in the top, who wants to take this one? The Gaza war, May 21.
Yeah?
Okay, was addressed to you. Yeah, microphone.
Okay, I'll try to be
Was
quick.
Western support diminished
Yeah.
because rockets were fired from Gaza?
Yeah, I think that to a certain extent, I think there's a separation between Western media and necessarily the public, and then which sections of the public. I think if Western media is not, or mainstream media, that whose bias has been kind of very, very adequately documented. I recommend you look at some of the work that Ben White might speak about tomorrow, is likely to speak about and has been doing alongside other organizations, but also they're not looking to make the nuances between who's shooting, who's the terrorist, or who's the extremist, or who's the fundamentalist, or whatever else you want to describe whoever's doing that physical act, but also the disproportionate, because the need to kind of racialize and create this monster of the Palestinian, the Muslim, fundamentalist terrorist. It doesn't matter. They don't care about the details of it, and they're not looking to kind of, and our focus is not to kind of necessarily make them, like our energies, particularly of solidarity movements, are not necessarily fully directed towards making them change their minds on those things, because it's clear around the institutional weight that that's not necessarily going to happen. Our efforts are about those alternative spaces, about creating a movement that is so strong and unavoidable, that applies so much pressure that they are forced to finally report on the truth and to provide those nuances. So it's also about where it is that we direct it. I also recommend, to pitch our own outlet, The New Arab. There was a brilliant piece written by Mohammed Al-Qud around this question and around the refusal that arguably this is never going to happen, and so our attention has to be placed elsewhere, particularly when it comes to the West. And then finally, okay, shall I wrap up? In relation to Tawfiq's, yes, I'm in total agreement with everything that you said. I absolutely think we need to capitalize on this moment, as with every moment, and to harness a movement that continues beyond the moments of during the moments of lull, during the moments of silence, because that's what we keep having, these cycles of violence in which we mobilize en masse, we get people out on the street, we mobilize campaigns, we have these incredible pieces in the media, then the lull comes and there is no organization, there's no network, there's no established something that continues to provide the political education necessary and the awareness and consciousness needed to maintain it and to kind of push it to the next level, one that we haven't achieved so far.
Thank you, Malia. She's right. If you're looking for something new, the New Arab is it. Thank you. The question about people mixing up Islamists with the radical Islam, terrorism, and lumping all this together, how does that impact our work?
هذا سؤال الأخت اللي هناك.
Yes.
طيب بجاوب.
I'm paraphrasing, but it's. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay.
لأني بس بدي أرجع للسؤال الثاني.
Go ahead. You can handle both.
طيب, I'm going to start with the comment by the gentleman over there. I quoted a study. This is a credible study, and the study that we're dealing with its impacts. So now, how you contextualized it, that's your opinion. I don't know how you made it that the other way around, that this is my opinion. This is a credible study that we are working with because we see the consequences of this study and we see it in motion. There is a shift. That does not undermine that there are dynamics that are taking place in the Western societies, that you have two camps or broad camps that are being created, that there is a conflict over which America we want or which Europe we want. Is it the tolerant Europe or the fascist Europe, or the tolerant America or the fascist America? We've seen this when Trump signed the Muslim ban. Most of those who protested were white Americans. Muslims were terrified to protest or to speak out. So there are shifting dynamics where now intersectionality is becoming a fact of life, where there is a recognition that there is one oppressive regime, where now people are drawing parallels between what is taking place in America in terms of the police brutality that Ahmed spoke about, and between what is taking place, and Floyd was a flashpoint here, or as the JVP called it, deadly exchange. So no, we are cognizant of the dynamics that are taking place, but I wasn't discussing a broader, the broader theme here. I was speaking about a very specific issue that deals with our work to impact the situation in favor of Palestine. So that is my point here, and that's my focus. But if we want to go into an intellectual debate, I can take you on that intellectual debate. And by the way, I don't disagree with most of what you said. See? But that wasn't my topic, and that wasn't my speech.
Okay.
Now, بالنسبة لقضية الآن صعود التيارات الإسلامية وأنها أصبحت تقريبا هي الوجه
They
الأبرز.
have become the most prominent face of Palestinian resistance, although there are changes even inside Palestine, and it's no longer just the Islamist trends who, if we talk about the Shuhada al-Aqsa, Katib al-Janin, Arin al-Usud, all these different organizations tell us that there is change, but Palestinian resistance by and large is classified as terrorist, not because of the presence of Hamas and Islamic Jihad. Of course, the continued use of Hamas and Islamic Jihad movement, because of the discourse they used or some of the interpretations for the reasons behind resistance, does not comply with the Western mentality. I'm not saying that the West should be the dominant uh, party which occupies the ethical high ground or not, but the discourse against the Jews was not right. And but the changes with Hamas and their political charter and others created a change, but this is not what we're talking about. But in the general frame, that anybody who resists for the sake of Palestine falls within the brackets of terrorism. Yasser Arafat was classified as terrorist. Even the Popular Front for the Liberation of Palestine, other organizations like Adal and others are all classified as terrorists because this label of only Islamists are terrorists is no longer enough. So if we take into consideration the rise of the Palestinian solidarity movement in the world, you see a large component of it belongs to the left. For this reason, there was an assumption that they are all leftists, so therefore we start saying that socialists are terrorists, Islamists are terrorists, but what is the common denominator here is Palestine. So I just wanted to add to what my colleague has said. No, go back, please. Go back, please. Go further behind. There was a question which I got before you when you talked about figures that there is an improvement in the solidarity movement with the Palestinians. Why is this is not reflected in the foreign policy? Yesterday we spoke to the Secretary of State before he left on a tour to the region, and it's the nature of states that the public opinion reflects in the policies of the state. And the country that considers itself the biggest democracy should take this into consideration. Public opinion, when we say, for example, 50% of it solidarity with the Palestinians, because you cannot say that 50% of American foreign policy is in favor of Palestine. This is not reflected this way. No. I don't have a question. I just wanted to congratulate and thank these young men and women who are active in America, Europe, Canada, because they speak about the reality of American and European reality despite the difficulties they encounter to achieve the result. Yes, thank you. They all deserve to be congratulated. Thank you. Yes, they reside in places where the decision making takes place. We live in the Arab world, and uh, and the Palestinians who live in the Arab world face more problems than Palestinians face in the West. We thank you, we salute you, and God bless. Thank you. Short question. Is there any coordination between your organizations? Secondly, Israel, some 5, 6 years ago, established a ministry especially to deal with, they called it the Strategic Affairs Ministry, to work against the BDS and all Palestinian organizations. Okay, okay, take this message to Ramallah, please. Of course, what this means is Israel deals with this with the utmost seriousness. So are you dealing with that? Go back, please, more. I was sitting there at the top. I had to move down to get my hands on the microphone. I'll pose a strange question. Why all the Jewish people in Israel who support Israel, of course, they support each other, and they coordinate between them. And Dr. Osama said when he talked about how to be active in Western countries, and Brother Majed, I have more information regarding Germany, especially about Berlin. By the way, in Western countries they have more division, factional division. In Germany, there are three professional medical associations or syndicates, for Palestinian people. So I think maybe Dr. Osama alluded to this partially, is how we should have a methodology in our work in America. We hope that this is done globally, or at least at the level of the United States. We hope to achieve that in Germany, at least. Important is that how we should marginalize all factionalism and focus on the Dr. Alfred. Dr. Alfred, my name is Mahal Khatib from Jordan. Thank you very much. You fill my heart with content. A simple question: are we, as Arabs or Palestinians specifically, are able to work within the political organizations like political parties which reach a decision-making level so that the Palestinian voice and the solidarity with Palestine's voice can reach these circles, and so much so that Palestinians take part in the political formations in these different countries. With all due respect to your efforts, past and present, that all the organizations which are engaged in solidarity work with Palestine, we see that the Jews who support Israel, either Republicans or Democrats, they are members of the basic political parties. We have some experience with the Irish Parliament. We work with, I work with Dr. Rima Khalaf on the question of combating apartheid to take support from the Irish Parliament through people who are Arabs who work for the Irish Parliament. So, is the establishment of organizations outside the political organizations better, or working from within is better? Thank you. If my grandmother was here, would have said to you, no. Okay, thank you. The time is finished. Okay, if you want to stay, stay, but our time is over. So let us respond to these questions, then we can take another round of questions. Very quickly, coordinate. And we'll talk about America. I cannot speak for any coordination outside America. There is coordination in America, but is it at the level that we aspire to? No. There was agreement from years ago that any outside links should be reflected in our work. Anybody who wants to further the agenda of Gaza or Ramallah or Amman or Doha, no, then we want to to have a broader solidarity movement, which Christian other organizations. Ahmed is part of this. He knows that we have policy forums, we have strategy coordination. At least in this regard, America is moving in the right direction. There are people who are obsessed with factionalism. They want to impress Ramallah or Gaza. They are free to do so. But we're not talking about a country or two. We are we're not in America to liberate Palestine from America. We want to achieve justice for Palestinians in America. Those who are in Palestine can liberate Palestine. Now I feel like I'm talking about America. Maybe in Europe they are better than us. I'm not talking about Osama in particular. This is the work of generations. Now, now I have people in their 20s who call me uncle. They. So if you are uncle, what can they say about us? They tell you grandpa. I think now we have young men and women. I think CARE published we have over 300 Arabs and Muslim won elections at the localities level, federal or state. We are engaged and we are partners. It took me 12 years to get American nationality because I'm Palestinian. I'm not complaining, I'm proud of that. When through my personal efforts, I got 150,000 votes. We're not just Arabs and Muslims. We have members of the Congress, Mary Newman, Dan Andrews, Dati McCallum, who presented the first project for Palestine. These people we supported, they spent tens of millions of dollars to defeat them. We do not have millions of. For example, some people are active on Facebook uh, and, for example, when we say to them, donate $200, they don't, and they built a house in Palestine for $1 million. But I'm not talking about supporting Palestine as Arabs and Muslims. We also count on people who support our cause. The guy from San Antonio, when he says the only voices absent are the Palestinians. When when we have 25% people of Jewish descent, we cannot convince our own youth that they say, for example, Schwarzenegger become a governor and he has an accent. We are authentic people. We are facing problems and hardships, but we are achieving also, and we should not underestimate of the change which is taking place in the West. Will this change the government policy? No, I'm not saying that. This is a gradual process. Now I started with my back to the wall. Every step forward for me is an achievement. My role in America is they want to cause me 1,000 cuts under the. We are creating an impact. I'm talking about myself. I was there was a time when they used to write frightening things, vilify me. My 6-year-old daughter was frightened. Today I don't care. I go to the State Department. I go to the Congress. So when Trump came to power, he changed a lot of the dynamics, the alternative media and demonization and the myths. They changed the dynamism. Now, if the state is the enemy of the state, if the Democrats are the enemies of state, this is part and parcel of the discourse to shift the narrative. You want to demonize when I can't defend myself. Uh, Black Lives Matter, the extreme, extremist or socialist or something. We have to do our job. Does this mean that we must win? Not necessarily. God helps those who help themselves. And you cannot just sit on your backside and think that because your cause is just, then you will be victorious. Yes, exactly like what Uncle has said. One thing we ignored Norway, Northern Europe. Lena, go ahead.
Thank you very much. لدي سؤال واحد في بدء الأمر. فعلا
انت فاي.
أنا أثمن.
آسف اسمي لينا خطيب. I'm the head of the Norwegian Palestine Committee. It's a 50-year-old solidarity organization for Palestine in Norway.
Excellent.
And it's made up of white people كمان يا ماجد. يعني we have to work with white people if we are working in a white community. معلش. But I think so we have to distinguish us as a solidarity movement. We need to work extremely broad. In Norway, we have unions, 5 million Norwegians, 1 million of them are unionized. For us, that's a very important cooperation partner and a way to influence policy and politics. But we are not there yet, even though we have a much better situation and much more freedom of organization and expression than in Germany, for example. But what I want to ask, because we are so inspired by the American solidarity movement with Palestine, is, I mean, you are working very broadly, and we must do that. But can we also, the other way, as a Palestinian community abroad, work towards our Palestinian leaders in Palestine? Is this something you discuss, or is it something you do at all? That's my question.
Yeah, unfortunately, that needs another panel, I think. It's a long story, yeah, but the answer is yes, and it should. By the way, بس مشان قبل ما ننهي بس خليك old timer يعني شخص اشتغل على هذا الموضوع.
Okay, as a person that has worked on this topic for more than 40 years, so we used to have something called so we should not allow the differences that separate between us in the Arab world and the Palestinian context. They should not be taken to the US context. Unfortunately, we had been contaminated and it has led to so many issues and problems. And the reason why was due to the fact that the differences amongst Arabs have aggravated. And the second point, so the problem that happened is that the PDK is in the US. So there are a number of things when they move to the communities in the West, they would no longer see life where they started, but they expand and take time in the West. So the repercussions take a longer time to disappear, even if the phenomenon does not exist in